Oh, yeah, we're gonna start streaming. All right, I think that started.
We're live?
I think so. This is our first live stream, so
Yeah.
bear with us.
Yeah.
Everything's backwards. It's opposite day. Okay. It's like off center. It looks terrible. I mean, it doesn't look good to begin with.
Just take it out.
No. All right. So we're gonna get started a little early because it's our first time going through the live stream. I guess just welcome. We're gonna show off our wonderful sign that we had. We had a new office, so we're kind of putting stuff together a little bit ad hoc, closing the door so the other people don't get upset. Hi, I am Kevin Galligan. I with Touch Lab, and this is Natalie.
Hi, I'm Natalie. I organize Droidcon New York and San Francisco.
I don't know how many people are on the live stream.
Wait, I think
we can find out.
13 people
13.
watching now.
All 13 of you are probably aware that this is related to Droidcon. I'm going to go through, we're kind of doing a twofer here in a sort of early Friday excuse to go home early. I'm going to go through the Droidcon app, how to build it, and kind of the architecture that we use, which is interesting if you're interested in the Kotlin Mutliplatform stuff. And then we're also going to simultaneously be doing a sort of Q&A if you have any questions about Droidcon. I imagine a large portion of you are probably coming or even speakers.
Hopefully,
so
yeah.
you may have questions.
Oh, I should save some discounts till the end so that you
we have discounts. You can say them now. They don't have to stay.
Oh, okay.
If you feel like that's useful. I got my summer hat on because it's going to be Summer Friday soon. We're having our Summer Friday drinks. That was so it's a good excuse to leave early. Anyway, that's what's going on. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat. I think they will be slacked over to us because we can only have the one screen.
Well,
or tweet at Droidcon NYC, and Natalie will get those, and we can answer questions for you. Okay, so
when I do that, it means I'm looking at Twitter.
It's okay. We're going to a small screen now, and no one's going to see us anymore. We get screenception going on here. Okay. So how did I start? I made notes, so we'll see if I can follow my own notes. What we're gonna do is move the drink, and then we're gonna so we're gonna go to GitHub and clone our repo. This is the Droidcon Kotlin repo. I sent this out in the morning, and I'm gonna make it just a different folder because I've been making tons of folders. Screencast. Everything worked kind of fine for the Android side, and then we had all kinds of trouble for the iOS stuff. So it turns out to be some kind of a CocoaPods thing, and so I actually added all the pre-built pods. So I'll walk you through how to do that. It's not necessarily a recommended way of building stuff, but I didn't really want to debug CocoaPods today. That's what we did. So we cloned a repo, and while you're in there, just make sure you click that little star thing because we like eyeballs, and that's what the cool kids do. All right, so we're gonna open this in IntelliJ. If you don't have IntelliJ, obviously you're a crazy person. So let me just close this. And I was prepping for this, and I have everything still open. So we're going to open the repo. Just open the folder that you cloned, and that should have the idea project all ready to go. And that should work fine. It's going to take a little while to run and do its thing. One critical thing that we're going to have to do here is add a local properties so that we have the Android SDK, which normally, if you're doing Android Studio, that would happen automatically for you. So some of you may have never done this, but you should have to do this. It is going to be ignored on git ignore. So let me just do this. I'm gonna cheat a bit, sort of like the cooking shows where something's already prepared. So this. You don't need the NDK, but I'm a creature of habit, so whatever. Okay, so we do that, and then you have to create an Android configuration, because again, this is not Android Studio, so everything's not there. That's very simple. Go to Android app, select the module, it's app, and that's it. So then, you should probably name it something like app. That's nice. It's good to do.
How different.
Okay, and the emulator is unhappy with us. So what we're gonna do is a little force kill, I guess. We might wind up with our first major unfortunate situation. Is that really? Yeah, that thing's taking a nap. Okay.
Meanwhile, there are 32 people watching us.
32 people watching us. Welcome to the what is this? Is it a live cast? I don't know what you would call it. All right.
It's almost like a live show.
Don't send a report. We'll send a report later. All right. So we're gonna try to build. It's gonna start up the emulator. This is gonna take a little. There we go. Is the audio back? Yeah, well, it's back.
Yay!
All right. I know. I can't do anything about the 1080p right now. Everyone just deal. We promise it'll be better. I'll just zoom everything in, like, you know, old people style or whatever. Sorry, that was ageist. Okay, so if you go in here, yeah, here's the app. Does its thing. You'll notice if you play with the app actually that the rooms are given a little emojis, which is because we're going to take feedback on how many people RSVP for things and assign rooms because the sizes are different, which is kind of the thing we do every year, and it was just kind of fun. There's your schedule, which is whatever you put in there, you know, and then that shows up, pretty straightforward. There's a sponsor section, which isn't done yet, so it's just empty.
We do have sponsors.
We do have sponsors.
We
got plenty of sponsors. The conference is definitely happening. So that's the Android side, which is kind of using material components to some degree. It's a long story. Take a look at the code, you'll see. All right, so the iOS side, which is pretty neat, but super, this part takes a little while. So you run Gradle W build, and this will do sort of the multi-platform magic under the hood, and then produce binaries that Xcode can consume and ultimately do your iOS stuff. The I was gonna say originally you needed CocoaPods installed. We're not actually gonna run CocoaPods again because of the bug that we ran into earlier today. It like essentially works on the folder that I created the project in and works nowhere else on planet Earth. So until I figure that out, just clone the whole thing and that'll work. But don't run CocoaPods. Absolutely do not run CocoaPods. So yeah, this is going to take a little while. I forgot I'm used to making videos that aren't live and you can kind of pause, but we can't pause. So now we just have to chit chat.
I just had my drink.
What else is going on with Droidcon? How are things going?
Good. We're setting up everything. Currently working on coffee.
Coffee's a big topic, obviously.
We will have coffee. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I guess we nailed it. So, good chit chat. All right, maybe I'll start explaining the architecture while that's building. All right. So I just saw the microphone clip. You got a nice mic. Everything else needs to be upgraded, I think. So I'll get back to that once that builds. It takes a little while. This is only the first time when you build stuff. It takes this excessively long period of time. And I wouldn't recommend right now doing the process of making changes to the shared Kotlin and then building and going to iOS. It's a lot faster to iterate on making your shared code changes and hitting Android, because the iOS build right now just takes longer. I mean, it's a new platform, a lot of optimizations that need to happen. So that's it. All right, so that'll probably take another minute or so. The folder structure, which is not as zoomed in as I would like here, so I won't spend a ton of time on that. But there is, keep getting tons of notifications here. There is essentially this root build Gradle, which, oh, never mind, it built just in time. So what I do is, that's not what I wanted. Go in here, open up a new terminal tab, go into the iOS app folder, and then just open this, and you got to make sure you open the workspace and not the project. So this will open Xcode, and you can run the project, and it'll open up in your simulator, or God forbid, your actual live iOS device. Yeah. It's definitely a little slower with this video compression running in the background. So we'll see. This also runs some kind of Gradle project. I'm not 100% sure what it's doing under the hood. So this will take a little while, and it's building material components. One of the things we tried to do, and I'm kind of jumping ahead here, was use Google's new material components on Android and iOS and have a relatively homogeneous style setup. But the rest of the team is working on actual buildable projects. So I kind of was doing the iOS side of the UI myself, and I'm far from an iOS UI expert. So I was like sort of reading the book on how to do view controllers, and then also trying to implement them with material components, which is like is in beta, to sort of put it kindly. So it's a little bit still coming together, but it's almost there. You'll see in a second. Wow, this thing is definitely slower. So exciting. I hope everyone else is having a wonderful time waiting for this to build.
What everybody's drinking, by the way. Let us know in the comments.
What is everyone drinking? Very healthy work.
Especially on the...
We have, I mean, from the style perspective, we've got, oops, that wasn't what I wanted to do. If you've overbooked your time slot, we'll have a little red thing here. Otherwise we won't. Yada yada. So that's basically what it does to, where was I? Here in my little
yeah, one of the rooms is going to be a wine room, so this is the room where we're going to be most of the time, I guess.
Very important. So that's how that works. I was going to show a little bit of, you'll see this is all Swift, and the material components thing. So in here, we have a little fun with colors here. So we'll do, there's a central file where we're going to have eventually all of the color and style configs, which right now is, I wouldn't say all, but it does a good portion of them. And it's kind of neat, so you can play around with the color schemes. I actually just, dumb luck, did this earlier, and I'm like, oh, this actually looks not terrible. So wait for it to come up. Judge for yourself. I'm also not a designer, so I could be 100% wrong on that.
Good.
What? Oh no, I'm saying this when you see the new color come up, because I didn't really change the color schemes.
That's
It's a radically different design.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Better or worse?
So you be the judge. That's what I'm saying. Like I don't want to tell people what to like. I can't define art. This is taking a long. Yeah, it is definitely because it's processing video at the same time. I sincerely apologize. See, look. Ah.
Mia likes it.
Yeah, it's cool. So just change a couple of files and boom. Style for days. All right. That's great. So anyway, eventually the plan is to have a consolidated styling thing using the material components and whatever. But, that's obviously in this cross-platform ecosystem. A shared UI, that kind of stuff. Like how do you build a UI on top of your shared code? That's an endless debate. Looking forward to all the Flutter arguments coming at me. We'll see how that goes. No offense, much cool. No judgments. All right, folder structure. So let's get back to that. So what I was mentioning before, there's a root build Gradle. This project was kind of taken initially from SQLite sample project, and then that was morphed into this other thing, which then became this. So you'll notice some sort of patterns that other projects use. So this has got a very centralized dependency definition and version definitions. We're using Kotlin Native version 8. We kind of need to go to 8.1 eventually, but there were significant changes to the Gradle plugin. I didn't really want to change the downstream libraries, so kind of there. Let's see, so that's cool. Source is, we go into the Sessionize folder. It's called Sessionize because Droidcon uses Sessionize as a conference sort of event management system, and this app can be used by any conference that uses Sessionize as their backend. So that's kind of why we're also trying to make it brandable. I assume we're going to be using this Droidcon SF.
Oh yeah, we're already using Call for Papers, by the way, is already open.
Yes,
so
Call for Paper. Sorry, go on.
Oh yeah,
cutting you off.
Just like we still have 1 month, which I know everybody's going to be waiting until the last day, but it's going to be open until September 2nd. So, yeah.
Yeah, everyone get them in on the last day, which is we all do. All right, Sessionize. In here, there's a source folder where all your common code is kept. Then there's an iOS and an app folder, which is the Android folder. Yeah, there's also the SQLite folder here, which is super, super neat that all this actually works together. So the SQLite definitions go in here. We've got the room for the whatever your session. You got your speaker for the session and the user account, which really is the speaker. These are the entities we define. I get spam calls all day. It's really great. So take a look at it. It's capable of some pretty sophisticated SQL here. We got like an inner class, inner table. I forget what you call it. All that kind of stuff. Left joins. It's neat. If you're a SQL nerd, you should dig it. That generates some Kotlin on the output, which is in here. Yada yada. And it's all great. So it works. It's cool. That's SQLite. So we also in the Kotlin folder. I know you can't see this. I'm sorry about the 1080p, but come check it out later. This we hand copied the serialization code from Kotlin X just because the packaging wasn't really set up to work with the Kotlin native library properly. We were running into issues, so you'll find that here. That's not good practice by any stretch of the imagination, but whatever. We're using that for JSON parsing. So in this folder, I'm trying to think of what to highlight. the stuff's kind of all over the place because it was like a big rush to code this thing, and then where you develop a pattern of source like organization, it's like when you get an entirely new thing, sometimes you like, it's hard to just miracle that together. You need to, like, we need to do a second pass to do a refactoring. So that hasn't really happened yet. So a lot of the stuff's kind of in a weird spot. But we have this entry point, which is good to start with, kind of. It's called app context. And app context is going to have, it's got the DB helper here, which I'll get to in a second. It is sort of the first point of entry on Android and iOS. So we have this init platform client, and we pass in, we do that like another method, but I really just didn't, I just wanted to use Swift. I really didn't want to try to write that another way. So this is one way that you can do stuff and interrupt with the native platform. We're passing in specifically, we have static files, so static files for data, so like seed data files. And this is giving you a way to read those from the packaging of the native platform. And then this one is we're doing ping. We didn't use Firebase because we're using Android X, and Firebase doesn't work with Android X unless you upgrade to a certain version of Gradle, which was incompatible with the packaging for yada, yada, yada. Anyway, it sucked and knocked a few hours out of my day yesterday, so we didn't use that. What was I gonna say? Yeah, that is, we pass that in, and that's sort of one way you can do native interrupt outside of just the expect actual. And actually, I'll show you real quick, since we got tons of time anyway.
We've got a question about the repo.
Oh. Can you post it?
Yeah. Just send me the link.
Oh. What's in the tweet? Oh, it's in my Medium post there.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I'll post the link.
So, yeah, you'll see in here, we have this prefix, but it's app context, do a net platform client, and then we do static file loader and the analytics callback. And then those are just defined functions here. So load asset is a static file loader, and it returns a string. And here it's a little different. You got the name and the params, and then we're actually returning unit explicitly, which it would be nice to see if there's a way to do interop without having to return a new instance of unit, but you know, not the end of the world. Okay, so that's that. And then we have, you know, we're calling on this to log event, and it calls into the analytics callback, and that's how that works. First run is using the shared settings library. That is another multi-platform library that we're using in the app. It's the only place we're using that library right now, which seems a little underwhelming, but there is plans to add more of that, and this is a very common architectural thing we run into, where we need to have singular settings and properties on an app, and this works real well. So the first time we run, we just seed data, and then after that, we go to the network. That brings us to the network data update, which I wrote this thing called simple get because I had an issue with the HTTP common client that's introduced to sort of figure out post today, sometime over the next couple of weeks. It was, I don't know what was going on. I was just running into crashes, so I just wrote, we're only doing gets, which are really straightforward. So I wrote a simple expect actual function for that. And then this background task thing, which I'll get into in a little bit, how that works. Because the real big thing about understanding Kotlin Multiplatform and Kotlin Native in particular is going to be around threading. And it's going to be quite different from what everyone is used to. Yeah, and the rest of this is just priming data and yada yada, JSON, that kind of stuff. Okay, so...
We got a question.
Yeah.
Would you mind to show us this setting that you made on the Xcode part to import the Kotlin native module into the Xcode project?
Import the Kotlin native module in the Xcode project. I don't understand the question. Could you show us the setting that you made on the Xcode part to import the Kotlin native? I can try to show the setup, but there's really an instruction set that the Kotlin native team provides in the repo. Talking through it real quick, it's you do the build, and the build produces a framework, and the framework is somewhere in here. This. So we in Xcode we essentially pointed that framework. So that's kind of how that works. There is a build phase that needs to be run to sort of finalize that. Oh, that's not even this. This is in here. But like you're gonna have to go and like read the instructions and do that. Like we'd have to just focus on that for the rest of this live stream, I think, to explain how to integrate a new project. Right now, this should work. Like you don't need to install Kotlin native. It should download everything that you need from Gradle dependency. If that doesn't work, then we're in for a wonderful afternoon, and we'll have to pick that up later. But anyway, so we'll go to NoteDB helper briefly, which was at the top here. This is just kind of the thing that's interacting with the SQLite library and SQLite facilitation library. I'm looking for a good term here. I'm just gonna refill my drink because it's that kind of Friday. Yeah. So the thing to keep in mind, you're good. We'll add more. Oh, this is getting more. I don't know. You look like you got some plenty. Yeah. The one thing that's different here that you have to understand is kind of everything in this window is going to be going across threads. It's going to be read from multiple threads. So everything in here is like frozen, which is a concept that you're going to have to get very comfortable with when you're dealing with Kotlin native. So essentially it's like super immutable. It's just something to understand, I guess. Otherwise, this is something, it's interesting to look and see how to interact with SQLite here and how to do queries and how to return data, that kind of stuff. And this is like inserting user data, querying user data, that kind of stuff. Here are prime speakers. This is taking a JSON string and doing the JSON parsing and then inserting stuff in the database. It's all pretty standard architectural stuff. But again, this is all happening cross-platform. So it's happening on iOS and Android simultaneously. Well, not simultaneously, same code. It's really wonderful. Really looking forward to go home early today. I was up late kind of tying all the loose ends on this to publish it today. And obviously everything takes way longer than you plan on.
But
so
up late, it's 1 a.m. It's not.
Oh, not crazy late, but then I got up early. So
late for us.
Yeah. I'm not sure anyone knows this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, anyway, cool. That's fine. So, some interesting side notes. There's no date in Kotlin, shared Kotlin. There's no date format, there's no date concept, which is another interesting library I think that really needs to be built, and it's going to help a lot. So we did just make it real simple. Expect date class, and on both platforms it's just returning long millis. And then another thing that's going to do date format, which is if you're running a conference app, obviously dates and times are pretty critical. So this is using Java date formatter on JVM, and it's using whatever the hell iOS has, I forget right now, but we can look that up. So and there also is, not that we want to get deep in the weeds, but we're doing a date adapter in SQLite, so you can have the columns defined as date as opposed to like a string or whatever, whatever it is. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I see here, I don't know, it's getting us a little upset, but this actually works. And you can use date as the type. So you're clearly enraptured with all this code talk. All right, so we're gonna try to go through as quickly as possible. The other thing, and again, this is why I was saying like we need to refactor this. It's in the utils package, but it's a Kotlin file called functions. And if you want to see all the weird like multi-platform stuff that we're doing, like the majority of it's kind of in here. So, yeah, and this is where I'll quickly go through and talk about background task and threading. And essentially, what happens is we, on the JVM side, we just use an executor service to run the stuff in the background. And then if you want to do the main job back on the main thread, it just uses handler to do a post. It's all really straightforward if you're an Android developer. On the iOS side, however, we're using a worker to do the background, and then sending things back from the background to the foreground thread is, it's not super complex, but it's a little weird. It's using the standard iOS stuff, but because of the way threading works on Kotlin native, like the background job and the foreground job, the main job, all get frozen, and anything that they touch gets frozen as a consequence. You have to keep that in mind. And there's going to be definitely a learning curve, I think, for everybody to get used to architectural thinking in this new context. So, anyway, I don't know what the point there was, other than that's what happens, so it gets frozen. So be careful what you're referencing your lambdas you're passing into your background tasks, is the point, I guess. So, what was I going to say? Background things. Okay, so the data and how things are modeled. I'm going to show you quick this thing called the schedule model, which is what's driving that main screen, which shows you the list of sessions during the day and how this kind of works. So the schedule model creates a live data instance. So this, I should explain what this is. In order to produce a reactive-ish data flow for the app, there really doesn't exist any sort of formal library right now on the multi-platform world. So I just took the source of live data from the architecture components and ported that to run in iOS, and then created a multi-platform map between these two things. I kind of talk about in the blog post, like there's a big debate going on in various circles about RX is too complicated, use this, which, you know, I won't get into the live data compromises we had to make because I explained in the blog post again, there's an issue with type aliases and protected classes. But that's how this works. So we have live data, which points at a SQLite query. And if you are watching that from the screen and you update the data in the background, it does what you'd expect, which is push that data to the foreground and refreshes the screen. So you can use this if you're building an app, but I would say that in the very near future, I would expect significantly more robust libraries to come out. So I wouldn't necessarily use what we did in the Droidcon app. It's just because we needed something, and this was easy to kind of piece together, you know, real fast. So that's what that is. But it works like you'd expect it to work. So yada 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 yada. What was I doing? Oh, there's a little interesting thing here in the live data. So as mentioned before, with the background data, you have to freeze both the lambdas, the background thing, and then the one that's coming to the foreground, because we were passing them all around. In the live data, I got a little fancy. So lambda in a thread local, which means you don't have to freeze it. So you can put stuff in there that, and it's not going to like by reach, you know, freeze everything that's in your object graph. So that was a neat little addition there. Although the thread local thing's kind of a mess right now, so it works, but you have to explicitly clear data out, or you'll have a memory leak. This sounds fascinating, I'm sure. Super, super fascinating. How's your drink? Okay, great. Anyway, so that's what the memory thing, yeah. This whole live video thing sounds way more compelling when you talk about it in the abstract. We're getting blasted by this blue light, so it's it's great. How's it going?
I'm not gonna sleep.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so anyway, yeah, the thread, the main thread, you don't have to freeze it. It's really neat. So anyway, so on Android, it works kind of like you'd expect. You create a view model that is lifecycle aware. You can subscribe to live data. It will do all the lifecycle stuff. It's actually multi-platform, delegating to the actual live data implementation. Does all that stuff on iOS. It's got sort of a simplified thing because it doesn't have the same lifecycle complexities. And then with solution. So yeah, and I mentioned the type alias situation. So there's a bug, and I mentioned this in the blog post. Please go, poke the JetBrains folks that like you can't do a type alias to a protected method on the JVM, which kind of blows up a whole bunch of really otherwise straightforward stuff that you could do, and it's messing the threads thing. It was made one of the database things like a nightmare. So I know it's nobody's priority, but I would love for that to be fixed. So okay, and what was I gonna say? There's not a lot else to talk about here. I mean, it's really not, once you kind of see how the architecture works and you poke around with it for a bit, assuming you can get it to build, it's pretty straightforward, I think. I mean, I've been doing this for months and years if you count all the Doppel J2JC stuff. So like, it's super straightforward to me. It may not be, but feel free to, ping with questions. I'm in the Kotlin Slack thing, and obviously the ASG thing, and then on Twitter. So yeah.
Is it when you talk about the schedule that you can? So the schedule is in the app.
Well, yeah. Hold on. We're gonna zoom right back in on us because we're so cool. Oh, now we're back. Yeah, I'm taking this off. Oh my god, it's like the room got really hot. Yeah. Oh, no, you didn't notice? Okay. Cool. All right. Yeah. So the schedule's gonna go out on the website next week. But if you desperately need to see the schedule, you can build the app. It's in the app.
They know how.
What?
They know. They know how to do that.
That's what we just talked about for the last half hour. That doesn't mean they know how to do it, but that's what I was attempting to.
Well, I'm sure they can watch it 5 times if something is not clear.
I don't think anything. I'm not sure anything was clear, but that's how you build the app.
Okay.
I had something else to say, and I completely forgot what it was. Do this.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I was going to say.
Well, if you have any questions.
Yeah, please hit us up on the various.
On Twitter or nyc@droidcon.com. Yeah, and I'll be there to answer them. Who's going to be there about the tech part?
What was I going to say? I don't remember. That's crazy. All right, never mind. Anyway, thanks for checking out the live stream. We'll work on our live stream.
Still have 34 people watching us.
Tightness skills. I don't know. Well, if you got anything else, I mean, I could do more code, but.
Well, I can say that if you're watching this and you don't have a ticket to Droidcon yet, find the tickets page and put in the magic word friends. There's gonna be a very good discount for you.
Friends?
Friends.
Like the show?
Like friends and family.
Oh.
Yeah, but just friends. Yeah.
Okay. It's a wonderful sign. All right, everyone. Have a great weekend. I'll see you in a few weeks.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.